Florida Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles with us here today. So I want to thank everybody for being here. We have talked for 4 years, and I've had Grady and Wayne at events about the problem of having an open border and having illegal immigration run amok. We sent people at the request of Texas to go to the southern border all the way back in 2021 to help with that mission to stem what the Biden administration was allowing to have happen. We did major reforms in the state of Florida since I've been governor, including banning sanctuary cities. Remember what those are? You're going to find out on January 20th, because some of these left-wing cities are probably going to try to be sanctuary. Obviously, we hope the federal government and Congress will combat that. So we banned sanctuary cities. We also enacted sweeping policies to protect Floridians against illegal immigration, including things like employment verification, including things like saying no photo ID for people in the country illegally, not just driver's license, but any photo ID, having strong policies to prosecute people who vote illegally if they're not U.S. citizens and properly registered to vote, and so on. And we even created a program to transport illegals out of the state of Florida, including to beautiful Martha's Vineyard. So we have done a lot over these last 4 years. And we've led the way on so many things. And the results, when we did the bill in 23, they said, oh, Florida, the economy is going to tank because you're cracking down on illegal immigration. First of all, that's offensive to say that Florida is just based on illegal immigration. And people will say, like, there'll be these farm workers, and they'll say, see, and then you go, and these people have farm visas to work here. So, but there was a lot of people saying that this was going to be like the worst thing ever. And then what's happened is Florida's economy has continued to grow. We've seen a huge reduction in taxpayer expenses at things like our emergency rooms because you have far fewer illegals that are going in to get free medical care. You've also seen illegals leave the state of Florida, not in sufficient numbers because the feds have worked opposite us, but you have seen that. So everyone's saying that you somehow couldn't do this was not accurate. We continue to thrive in the state of Florida, and we will going forward. But we've had a lot of complaints. People have been railing against the Biden administration's policies. I don't think there's a single Republican elected official in the state of Florida, or heck, in the country, who hasn't come out and said how bad these policies are and complained about them. Well, guess what? On Monday, we have an opportunity to do something about it with the inauguration of Donald Trump as the 47th president. We are not approaching the new administration in a lackadaisical fashion. We in Florida have a sense of urgency to accomplish this mission. And the mission is very simple. We need to end the illegal immigration crisis once and for all in these United States of America. Now, in order to do that, even though it's the federal government's primary responsibility to enforce our borders and enforce our immigration laws, practically speaking, given how many people came in under Biden, if the president and the Trump administration does not have support from state and local governments across the country, the policy is not going to be optimally effective. It's just the reality. And so we in Florida have an opportunity yet again to lead and to say we are going to be there every step of the way as the new president works to end this crisis once and for all. Our state officials will work with the federal government to combat illegal immigration. Our local officials. Now, look, someone like Grady and Wayne, they want to help because they understand the effects of illegal immigration. But not everyone necessarily wants to do that in every city in Florida. But we're going to say, yeah, not only can you not be a sanctuary city, you have an affirmative obligation to step up and help. And here's the thing. You can't just say, like, if someone's here illegally, wait till they commit like a serious felony before you deport them. If you have gangs, like the Venezuelan gangs are running roughshod around the country, we have some in Florida too, you should just be able to identify them. They're here illegally. get them, turn them over to ICE, and send them back to their home country where they belong. And we need to do this swiftly, and we need to do this overwhelmingly. Now, some people say, well, you know, you could just kind of wait, and we'll get around to it, and maybe we'll see. No. We have a sense of urgency in the state of Florida. We have to come in right on the heels of the new president getting sworn into office, and we need to enact strong policies that are going to help this administration accomplish the mission that the American people spoke loudly and clearly about in November. And I've talked with the president about these issues at length. We've been working with people on his team because they're going to be very bold. But the president himself told me, he said, you know, inflation was an issue. He's like, but I got elected because of the immigration issue and the border, and I'm going to solve it. And he is very, very intent on getting the job done for the American people. So we got to be ready, willing and able to assist. We've convened a special session of the Florida legislature on January 27th. President-elect has urged other governors around the country to do the same thing because working together, we can accomplish the mission. If we're going to drag our feet in the state of Florida, then that means that elected officials are not doing what the voters sent them into office to do. And I think this is very... I think this is very straightforward. There's been no issue that's been higher on the radar consistently over these last 4 years than the immigration issue. People that have run for office in Florida have run on it. They've run against Biden's policies. They said they're going to do something about it. Well, now's your chance. Don't say you'll get around to it in a few months. No, we need action, and we need action now. And I know Florida voters will expect nothing less than our full effort and full commitment to rapidly answer the call so that we can get this job done. So I want to thank everybody who has been strong on this issue for many years. Now is the time. This is a once-in-a-decade opportunity, maybe once-in-25-year opportunity to finally solve something that has been an issue in this country for decades. And so we need all hands on deck. We need to lead. Don't be passive. Be bold. Be strong. Make sure that you're out there doing, we got to go above and beyond the call of duty, not just act like this is any other time where we can just kick up our feet and kind of wait for things to happen. So in this legislative session, and we know what's coming down the pike on January 20th. We've been in discussions with policy people for the Trump transition. You're going to see some major changes in the federal government's posture with respect to the border and immigration. And these are things we've been asking for 4 years, but it gives us an opportunity to complement those efforts to really be a force multiplier and maximize the effectiveness of those policies. So we are going to be proposing, and I know we've got some members of the legislature here who are endorsing these changes. We are going to require that law enforcement at both the municipal, county, and state level that they have maximum participation in any programs to assist the federal government with the enforcement of federal immigration laws. Trust me, President does not want this to get bogged down in red tape. He understands. He wants to see the support. Second, we need to enact criminal penalties for illegal entry under state law. The federal government says, but what about the state? We should do this so that we have an ability to hold them accountable in ways. And my thing on this, people say, oh, we'll deport the criminals. You know, the problem with that is if somebody is here and they're in a gang and they haven't committed a crime yet, are you just supposed to sit there and wait till somebody's victimized? No, your illegal entry into our state was a crime. We get that on the books, and then we send you back home where you belong. So we need to do that. We are going to appoint a state immigration enforcement officer that will be dedicated to overseeing the coordination with federal authorities and Florida's existing program. For example, we do have the transport program that we have utilized, and that was something when we did that was over 2 years ago. I think it was September of 2022. A lot of people were not talking about the border. And once they showed up in Martha's Vineyard, then all of a sudden people were, because they didn't think it would apply to them. They didn't care what was happening to border communities in Texas or how people came across the rest of the country and imposed burdens on communities. They didn't care about that. But once they had to deal with just 50, then all hell broke loose. And so we have that, but we want to be able to work with the federal government. This will be obviously different than Biden, because Biden would fly them in the middle of the night, not tell us about it, and then all of a sudden you'd have people, the feds would bust them all over God's creation. That's not going to happen this time with the Trump administration. We'll be able to work constructively together. We also want to make sure that we are expanding our existing authorities so that local and state officials are empowered, and the federal government would have to bless this, and I think they will. They should be empowered to detain and deport people who are here illegally. It should not be, well, we ran out of ICE beds, therefore you got to release somebody on the street and then they go out and create problems for our communities. That's not the way it works. So that is going to be really, really significant. We also need better gang enforcement. We've got to broaden the legal definition of gang-related activities so that it includes these groups of very dangerous illegal aliens, these Venezuelans. It's really, really bad. And think about it. When we had Hurricane, I think it was Helene. Yeah, Helene. Maybe it was Milton. No, Helene. We had Helene. It did a lot of damage to the west coast of Florida with the storm surge. You had people arrested in the Pinellas County beaches for looting. There were 45 arrests in one tranche, and 41 were illegals. And it's like, why do we let this happen? Well, obviously, Biden wanted to let it happen. That's going to change, but we need to be there. If that happens, you work with the feds and you make it, you get it gone. But these are criminal rings of people that are basically leveraging and taking advantage of very weak Biden administration policy. And those days will come to an end. We also have to have reforms to education and voting rules to ensure we are maximally discouraging illegal immigration to come to the state of Florida in the first place. And we've done a lot of great stuff with that regard since I've been governor, whether it's no IDs, whether it's all these other things. But the one thing that's kind of still been out there, and this was enacted back in 2014, so it wasn't anything that I was involved with, but Florida gives in-state tuition for children of illegal immigrants. And I'm thinking to myself, why would we give that tuition discount to people that are not even in the state legally? So we need to repeal that. We have to put Floridians first. And if you're going to do a discount on that, apply it to more bright futures for Floridians, for Pete's sake. Don't give it to illegals.